Today we're going to take a look at the proper and safe usage of a bandsaw. A bandsaw can be used to make straight cuts or semi-curved cuts in a piece of wood, plastic, metal if you have a metal blade on it. For our purposes, we're primarily going to be using the bandsaw with wood. So, start off with a bandsaw. Just has a single blade that wraps around. One wheel comes down through the table, down to a second wheel, and wraps around. It's a single continuous blade. So one of the things that you need to do when you're looking at a bandsaw is take a look at the teeth. Make sure that the teeth are pointing downwards. That way, as the saw moves, it's going to impact the wood and push it down into the table. It is important when you are cutting with bandsaw that you always make sure that your workpiece is firmly on the table. If you need to make some sort of an angled cut, it is possible to actually adjust the angle of the table with a couple of knobs just beneath the table surface there. There's a little miter gauge on here to let you know what the angle is. One of the first things you're going to want to do when you go to use the bandsaw is to actually set the upper safety guard. The upper safety guard is capable of moving up and down. That way you can adjust it based on what the thickness of your workpiece is. The easiest way to set the upper safety guard is to take your workpiece, set it down beside the blade, move the upper safety guard down, and lift it so it's within 1/4 of an inch above that workpiece. Once you have it positioned, they have a knob along the back side. Some of them will have it on the side here, but you find the knob that tightens the upper safety guard in place and make sure that it's nice and tight. The reason why you want a little bit of a gap here is that way it's easy for the workpiece to move through the blade. It's not getting caught by the upper safety guard itself. Another important reason for the upper safety guard is that it actually has a whole bunch of different little tracking wheels here, and that ensures that you get a decent cut. If you were to leave the safety guard up here, this blade is able to move quite a bit and you're not going to get a very good quality cut. So you always want that upper safety guard placed within 1/4 inch of your workpiece. After you've set your upper safety guard, it's important to take into consideration a few other things regarding safety. With your clothing, if you have on long sleeves, make sure that you roll them up. If you have on jewelry, take it off. If you have anything that's dangling, tuck it in, like hoodie strings, things like that, and always, always, always make sure that you're wearing safety glasses. Before you turn on the machine, you want to make sure that there's nothing else on the work table besides your workpiece. So if you are using a ruler and a marker to mark out your cut, make sure that you remove these from the work table before you actually start your cut. Anytime that you're using the bandsaw, always make sure that you keep your fingers at least 2 inches away from the blade itself while it is in use, and never have your fingers in line with the cut itself. If your cut is going to take you within 2 inches of the saw blade, do not try to get your finger close to the blade. Instead, use a push stick. If this gets cut, mangled by the blade, that's fine. This getting cut is a lot better than your finger getting cut. Always make certain that you stand in front of the bandsaw when you're operating it. Never operate the bandsaw by standing to the side. There are times where if the blade breaks, the blade does have a possibility of actually jumping, hitting the table and jumping out to the right of the machine, so you do not want anyone standing to the right-hand side of a bandsaw while it is being operated. Once you have actually drawn your line at what you're planning on cutting, and you have the upper safety guard set up, then you can go ahead and work on making your cut. Make sure that your workpiece starts away from the blade. You don't want it touching the blade when you turn it on. Start it with a little bit of a gap, and when you turn it on, allow the machine to get up to full speed before you begin your cut. See, I move my hand away from the front of the machine here, and I'm just using one hand at this point because it would not be safe for me to keep my fingers here in line with the cut. When you are done with your cut, with the scrap wood that's sitting around, shut the machine off, wait for it to come to a complete stop, remove your scrap wood, and then if you have other cuts, you can go ahead and turn it back on and start your next cut. I've went ahead and angled the table so that you can see this a little bit better, but like I said earlier, bandsaw is capable of making straight cuts and also curved cuts. So, if you were trying to cut a curve, such as that, you cannot actually go into the saw and just cut around a curve. The blade itself does not curve. So anytime that you are making a curved cut, you need to make a sequence of what are known as relief cuts to begin with. A relief cut is just a line going from the curve out to the edge of the board, like these lines that I've just drawn on this workpiece here. To make a relief cut, you're going to turn on the saw, wait for it to speed up, cut into your curved line, and with the machine still running on straight cuts, you can go ahead and back it out. At this point in time, I have made a series of relief cuts along the curved line that I'm planning on cutting. The reason why we make those relief cuts is so that when we go to cut the curve itself, the blade will hit that relief cut and a little block of wood will break itself off. That helps to ensure the fact that the blade is not put under too much pressure, too much tension, and that it will be able to cut through the curve. It relieves the pressure off the blade. So now that I have my relief cuts, I'm able to actually cut the curve. I'm going to use one hand for this, which is okay on a bandsaw, because I do not want my other hand here in the way of the blade. And that allows me to make a curved cut with the bandsaw, and you can see how those relief cuts allowed a number of different little blocks to break off. That relieved the pressure from the blade. Once you're done with the bandsaw and you have turned it off, make sure you wait for the machine to come to a complete stop before you walk away from the machine. Also, make sure that you clean up any scraps and pieces that are on the table of the bandsaw before you leave the bandsaw. At the end of class, when it's time to clean up, get a dustpan and a hammer, and just go ahead and sweep any dust that's on the table into the dustpan, as well as anything that's down here. To just clean it up some. If you have time, you can use a shop vac to vacuum it as well.